go live any second now.
And I forgot my mask.
No worries.
Oh, gee. You got extras?
All right, it's what?
A pen. He needs a pen. Is that your Jeff? I thought it was. Sorry. I'm gonna sit over there. I'm here.
He wants you to sit here. That's why he put the chair.
Oh, okay.
That's why he put the chair here.
Okay.
So we are ready.
We ready to go?
All right, Mr. Mike.
It's July
Hi, Jay.
16th, 2020. And I am calling this meeting of the Everett Conservation Commission into session. I'm going to ask take the roll call here. Kyle Carlson,
Here,
Darrell Carlson,
I'm here.
Raymond Kernan,
I'm here.
Maeve Kernan,
Yeah.
Rita Hashem.
I'm here.
Well, we're all present. And I'm John Norton. What? Oh, Kathleen, I'm sorry, Kathleen O'Brien, is she here?
Yeah, they couldn't make it.
No,
No. Kathleen O'Brien.
no.
No. She's not here. And I don't know that she called anybody. I don't know whether she called. I don't know who she called. She didn't know who called.
She let us know she couldn't make it.
All right. All right, let's look at our agenda here. There's the agenda. All right, so now we have our first order of business here is the Northern Strand Community Trail. We are going to look at their their notice of intent. Who are the individuals who are there for that?
Jay Monty, I'm the transportation planner, City of Everett. I'm also the project manager for this project.
So you are the applicant.
Yes.
And
I'm
who
here
is the
with Kayla Souza.
representative? Who is the representative for the city?
That's me. Howard Stein Hudson is representing the city on this one. I'm Kayla Souza, the project manager.
All right.
So I can share my screen and we can run through the presentation.
Yes, please do go through the presentation now.
This is my first time doing PowerPoint on Zoom. So can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then if I hit from the beginning, we're still looking at it, I hope.
Yes.
Still good, yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So thank you for having us today. As the chairman said, today we're going to go over the notice of intent for the Northern Strand Community Trail Extension Project. So we're on the Zoom conference call hosted by the Everett Conservation Commission. Thank you for putting this together. I know it's not simple these days. So brief agenda. I'm going to try to run through the project scope and overview fairly quickly just to be conscious of everyone's time. I think everyone on the phone is somewhat familiar with the project at least, but we'll do some reminders. We'll do welcome and introduction to the project team, go over the location just so we can orient ourselves, discuss the design that has been submitted, and then we'll get into the part of the NOI, so discussion of wetland impact and the mitigation, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So a brief introduction, which we kind of did right before. So the City of Everett is the proponent, but the project is actually being co-funded by the city and Site Centers, the owners of the Gateway Shopping Center. So Diane is the PM for Site Centers, and I believe she's on YouTube Live right now, not signed into Zoom, but hello, Diane. So they've been co-funding design and then also will be co-funding construction. So Site Centers will continue to be involved with Everett managing the construction process. So HSH is the lead designer on this project, and we had a whole design team with structural, electrical, landscape, rail. But today with us, we have Ty and Bond because they were the environmental and landscapers who helped with the NOI. And then we had Lucas Environmental on as well to do the wildlife habitat evaluation. So as far as schedule and how we got here, we submitted preliminary design around this time last year. Actually, it's been a long journey. We did the planning report, concept report in, I guess, 2017, near the end of the year when I started at HSH. So it's been a long journey. We came before you, everyone at Concom, last November for requested termination of applicability for soil exploration, and that was found to be negative. So we've done some soil testing for Boardwalk and for Site Centers as well, because it's an activity use, under an activity use limitation. So that was the last time we saw you at Concom, and then we submitted final design in April through a comment resolution period with a peer reviewer, and now we have contract documents that we're ready to bid pending this NOI. So the project goal, there's a whole list of goals: accessibility, community, network, et cetera. But generally, we're looking to extend the existing trail by 3/4 of a mile from where it ends to the Mystic River. So just to orient, so this is just Google Maps with Everett highlighted. I don't know if you can you see my mouse too? Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I see the mouse anyhow.
Oh, great. Okay, so Everett. And then I just turned on biking so you can see where the existing trail is traveling through Malden, and then the part of it that's in Everett today. And then this is where we're looking to extend it. So just zooming in on the project area. So the little star is where it ends at West of Wellington. And then the parts of the project area that we've had to sort of balance with, we're going under Route 16, Mass Auto-owned bridges. We're going under 2 of them. We travel through the MBTA, through and around the MBTA ballast yard, so where they keep their stone to service the commuter rail, the Newbury-Rockport line. And then, of course, we have Gateway Shopping Center Plaza with Target and Costco and Home Depot and all those stores everyone knows up here. And then across the tracks, we have Encore Casino. And then at the time that this graphic was made, this was a proposed trail. Of course, it has been built. So here's our project area. As I said, so this is the existing terminus, just a picture. So this is where the trail ends today, and we're looking down towards the extension at the first bridge. So some design considerations, just I wanted to include some photos so that we could kind of visualize what the path looks like. When the shopping center was built, the intention was for the path to be right at the back of it. So for a good amount of our project, we have this nice leveled off shelf here. So that's where our proposed alignment ended up being. That allows us to keep a safe distance from the commuter rail, which you can see next to Encore over here. And then there's actually quite a bit of wetlands that sort of are flat against the commuter rail line. So this is where you can kind of picture the path, and that gives people access to stores too, which is great. So here's the MBTA ballast storage yard. This was one of the restrictions that caused us to have maybe a little more wetland impacts than we all would have liked. We negotiated pretty hard with MBTA to get some of this space here so that we can go through this bridge safely, but we couldn't take up all of their rail. So once we get out of this bridge, this is the first bridge, we kind of have to shift over and get off of MBTA right away. And the city of Everett is paying for a rail design so that this track can get merged with this first track, which we're not touching, so that they can keep their operations. Really important. MBTA is always fighting for space, and we can get our path through. And then, of course, the reason we're here today, so just identifying the wetlands in this area and then all the other environmental resource areas. So here's the alignment in final condition. So as I said, current terminus, we go under the first bridge, we get out of the MBTA's way, we go to the second bridge, then we travel through all those wetlands that you saw in that DEP screenshot. We bridge a wetland. We'll talk about that design feature a bit later. And then as long as we can, we stay up on the the Site Center shelf, and then we connect to the Encore River Walk.
Is that about a half a mile? Is that what the entire length of what you're doing?
It's about 3/4 of a mile.
I mean, 3/4 of a mile. Yes, 3/4.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Very difficult 3/4, expensive 3/4 mile trail that's really important because it's connecting, this Encore River Walk and then all the DCR paths as well to the existing Northern Strand Trail, with the intention, right, that like one day this builds to Boston. So this would let people, as far as project goals go, it lets people bypass Sweetser Circle and then some of the unsafe conditions on Broadway, and they would be off-road for all of this.
When do you plan to start this project?
This is almost our last hurdle. I think we have everything we need from DCR as far as access permits, and the MBTA is ongoing. Once we have, I think we're just amending a lease agreement, and maybe Jay has more of a timeline from there, but we were hoping to bid within the next month to start bidding. And then the contractors could do what they could this fall to get ready and then do most of their construction next year.
But it will go into 2022. 2021,
Yeah.
I mean.
Definitely into 2021, yep. So we've had some delays, let's say, with, there's just so many stakeholders with this project, with MBTA, DCR owning land, all the environmental stuff. So we went through a pretty extensive review process with DCR for this NOI. They've already reviewed this 3 times before they signed it on June 26th. So all of that's taken some time.
Well, that
I
can
think
be
we were
seen
hoping.
from reading it. It's very, very long, what you've been going through there. It was very well done, the notice of intent.
Thank you. So that's our next slide, actually, the notice of intent submission. That's been signed by all the owners who have a property that's relevant to the environmental resource areas. I can pull it up, but what we tried to do in this presentation is just pull the highlights, the summaries of the areas, and pull some of the pieces from the plans together so we didn't have to flip through our 200-page document. So it's just a standard notice of intent, I guess. We have the Wetlands Protection Act form and narrative that goes through the existing conditions and what we're proposing, and then all the attachments. So the figures that are identifying all the areas, site photos, our wetland scientists who delineated the wetlands at the beginning of the project, the permit drawings, Ty and Bond did the existing tree survey, and the wetland replication plan report. And then HSH did the stormwater memo, and Chris Lucas performed the wildlife habitat evaluation. So that's what you'll find in the attachments. That's why it's such a robust document. So if there's anything I don't go over on these next few slides, we can probably open that up and I can just continue sharing my screen. But this is a key plan. So I know a little bit harder to follow than the graphics, but on the bottom right, this is where the existing path is. So this is like the northernmost part of our project. And if you follow my mouse right to left, we're going south until we eventually meet the Encore Riverwalk, and this is the Mystic River. I just want to show this key plan because we're going to zoom into these 4 areas because these are the most important environmental areas. So we have the Encore Riverwalk, which is where we get into a lot of our buffer zones related to the Mystic River. So I'm just going to go back to that. And then we have some areas where our wetland impacts were pretty tough to avoid. So this is the area that I said we passed through the bridge, and then we're right up against the MBTA ballast area. So we had to kind of get into this small little wetland. And we're building retaining walls and everything to try to minimize impacts. And then on this one, we'll zoom in again, but we're right up against them still. So it's sort of hard. We have a boardwalk because we're bridging two wetlands where it kind of makes sense, but to elevate the path to continue building boardwalk and then fitting through this bridge, it was pretty challenging. So we had some wetland impacts there too.
Where is it
but
that
just
where is it that you're going to be removing some trees?
We'll get to those sides, and then I might have Amanda tie in for that. She did the tree inventory, so I think she'd be better for that. So just what's in the area at all. So as I mentioned, we have the bordering vegetated wetlands, but these were not in areas of critical environmental impacts or the outstanding resource. I'm probably messing up those acronyms, but it wasn't in those. And it was not an NHESP protected wildlife habitat, but it was identified by Mass DEP as a potentially important habitat. So even though we were under the 5,000 square feet that you would normally do the wildlife valuation for, we did one anyway at the request of DCR since it has been identified in the state as a potentially important one. We are in, because of the tie into the Mystic River, we're in a land subject to coastal flowage, but according to the FEMA maps, this was not bordering land subject to flooding. So there were no performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act for this area. And then in the same area that we're in the flood zone, we're in the buffer zone for the coastal bank, salt marsh, and riverfront. And when we get to this slide, you'll see it's just very difficult to avoid these areas. We would have like a 100-foot gap between our project and the Encore River Walk if we tried to avoid these areas. So what we did instead was try to avoid fill. So mitigation measures that carry through the whole project, similar to what we showed at the RDA in November. There'll be erosion control barriers throughout construction. We put these wherever we thought our construction activities might impact environmental resource areas. So these will be put in by the contractor. The contractor will also be following a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and the city has signed an operation and maintenance agreement related to maintaining the path after construction. So they'll be minimizing the use of salt and de-icing chemicals on the path so that once it's there, nothing is getting into the resource areas. And then through design, we tried to mitigate the effects as well. So like I said, we tried to do minimal fill in the flood area, just do what we had to do to tie into the path, basically nothing else. We used these timber rail fences to allow wildlife movement in case there was wildlife found out there. In the evaluation, it was found that our project had no adverse effects on wildlife in the area, so that was good. The boardwalk construction is one of the bigger ways that we're mitigating, I think, and we'll have a slide on that just showing what the boardwalk's going to look like. And then because there were impacts that we could not avoid, we're doing wetland replication at a ratio greater than 1:1. And we tried to place that in areas where it would have unrestricted hydraulic connection to the same water body that's associated with what was lost. So this is our table of overall impacts to the resource areas. And then there's 2 wetland replication areas that we'll zoom in on, and I'll pass those along to Amanda. So just going back to the key plan, we're gonna zoom into the Encore tie-in. So I don't know how big your screen is or how well you can see this, but we've tried to color the buffer zones just so you can see how much we're in them. And we put this path as close to the back of the parking lot as we could so that we wouldn't need to do very much fill, and we're not clearing trees or anything to tie into the existing path, which is these lines here. So there's a whole path between us and our construction and the riverfront and the bank and the actual salt marsh. So we're not really impacting those. We're just kind of working in the buffer zone. So that's this page. And then just to jump around a little bit. So I'm gonna zoom into the kind of the corner where we've been traveling along the railroad right away, and then we jump up to be up at the shopping center. You can see the contours. There's like a gap between the higher elevations where if we were to just continue this path and just fill, our fill would have been huge. It would have been filling in this wetland and also discontinuing it and its hydraulic connection. So in this area, we're actually going to build a boardwalk to avoid major impacts to the wetlands. So this is where the boardwalk comes in. And then these are some of the wetlands that were really difficult to avoid. We have to keep a certain minimum offset from the railroad tracks. So keeping that and then trying to follow the existing grade as well as we could because we're approaching a bridge here. This is what we did. So these wetland impacts are just over 2,000 square feet. And then this is the inspiration for the boardwalk, I guess. There's a boardwalk that is used on a similar shared use path in Fall River. And then this is the one that our structural engineer designed, so 14 feet wide, pile driven, because it's quite elevated as it bridges the gap. And this is what we did the boring for, was for this boardwalk. So I can keep sharing my screen, but Amanda, I don't know if you want to jump in. The next 2 slides are the wetland replication slides.
Absolutely, yeah. For the record, I'm Amanda Poole, Senior Wetland Scientist with Ty and Bond. And we can take a quick look at, we'll go to replication area one first, Kayla. I think that would make sense. Mm-hmm. As Kayla mentioned, we are proposing approximately 4,400 square feet of impacts to wetlands. We will be replicating at a greater than 1:1 ratio. The existing wetland areas that are going to be impacted are paluster emergent marshes. So they're not forested wetlands. They're not shrub wetlands. They're mostly Phragmites dominant invasive, colonized wetlands. And so we are proposing to create an wetland replication area 1. This area is adjacent to an existing wetland in accordance with the DEP wetland replication guidelines. The goal is to have that unrestricted connection to an existing wetland to really help encourage the success and longevity and establishment of this as a functioning wetland well into the future. So we are proposing this small area to be excavated to a grade that's consistent with the grade of the adjacent wetland. And it will be vegetated with a variety of native herbaceous species. This is the planting schedule right here. The intent of this is to be an open herbaceous marsh to mimic that of the wetland area that's being impacted, because that is another one of the goals of the replication guidelines, is to replace a similar function and community structure to that was lost. So the plantings in here, if you're interested, I can zoom in on my screen here. I've got it open. But we're proposing things such as steeple bush, big blue stem, butterfly milkweed, a few goldenrods, blue vervain, soft rush, coneflower. So it's a nice variety of species, and this will be overseeded with New England wet mix. So they're really nice flowering plants that'll provide a lot of wildlife habitat value as well. And it's a pretty simple area. Wetland replication area 2 has a little more going on in it. This again is the intent of this wetland replication area is to create more of a scrub shrub wetland rather than an emergent marsh. And so in this area, we are going to be tying it into an adjacent wetland. I don't know, Kayla, if you can kind of point that out, but it's a channelized wetland that runs along the base of Route 16. And so we have identified the grade of that wetland and have established the grades of the replication area to be consistent with where we were seeing connections with groundwater and other hydric and wetland indicator conditions to help ensure the success of this area. And in this wetland, we're proposing more woody shrubs and a few tree species. And I can go through those really quickly as well. I can get my screen to switch here. Of course, it's tinier on my monitor than it is on that. Here we go. So as far as the tree species, we're looking at putting in a few box elder, and we will be installing a number of shrubs, including speckled alder, northern arrowwood, elderberry, which is a wonderful fruiting shrub for wildlife, silky dogwood, chokeberry, which has really great fruit and mast properties for wildlife, sweet pepper bush, and then we move into a variety of herbaceous species that are similar to what you'll see in replication area 1, such as the milkweeds, goldenrods, rushes. So it should be a really nice variety of species to create a really varied habitat. And to that end, the wetland areas that are being lost are, monocultures of Phragmites. So it is our hope with these designs that we're creating an enhanced wetland system through a varied community structure with a variation of plants. And then I also just speak to the chairman's question on the trees.
Yeah, I can open up the tree survey if that would help you.
Yeah, I think I have that memo open separately here. So Ty and Bond wetland scientists did a tree survey of the entire project corridor. And this survey included a span probably 30 feet to either side of the center line of the trail. So it should encompass the entire limit of work and probably then some. We considered a tree to be anything over 4 inches diameter at breast height or greater. And under that construct, we found 314 trees. The majority of these trees were all invasive. They were mostly tree of heaven, a little bit of quaking aspen, and a few populations of black locust, also an invasive species. We didn't really see much in the form of native trees. And in our wetland replication areas, the areas within your jurisdiction, we are proposing to remove 33 trees. of the 314 that we've surveyed. And under the replication plan, 6 will be planted. But the intent, again, of these replication areas is to construct more of an emergent marsh and shrub community to provide a little more variety of habitat.
Took me that entire time to find the tree survey, but I think you summarized it fine. My computer was not cooperating.
So that, yeah, and so that's the brief overview. I'm happy to dive into stuff more, but I'll hand it back to Kayla.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of, I think, questions on trees, and maybe you can just share your screen. But did that seemingly answer the tree question, or are there any other questions about this? One thing I should have said, actually, before we get into questions, we did file with Mass DEP 3 weeks ago, and usually we get a number within a week. So I did call Jay, I asked Kurt to look into it, and I've left a message with DEP to figure out what's going on. My understanding is that we can still go through with this meeting. We just can't officially receive the order of conditions until we have the DEP number. So once we get that, which should have been 2 weeks ago, but hopefully as soon, we can round back up.
Kayla, are we done with the notes of intent presentation, or was that just the replication part of it?
That was what we thought were the highlights. So I'm done presenting, but I can open up the report if you had questions on other parts of it.
Yeah, because like you want to just on your mapping sort of show the resource areas. I mean, I know we're kind of there, but sort of highlight the resource areas that we're dealing with and what we're doing to protect those resource areas. I mean, I know you showed silt fence and hay bale, but I mean, if you want to show it in map and, you know, kind of show an alignment of where the resource area is that we're dealing with and where and what you're proposing to protect them.
I guess the plan we had didn't actually show, it wasn't a construction plan, so it didn't show them. So I'm opening up the construction plan now. So it's just wherever we had, so there's a wall here, which is why it's not on that side, but wherever we had wetlands and we were doing work adjacent to it, we're just calling out the sediment control barriers. That's much of the project. You can see those here. And that's the detail that I showed on that sheet.
Yeah, I think you have to reshare the different window that you're opening, because we still see the PowerPoint.
You're seeing the PowerPoint?
Yeah, you have to switch it over in Zoom. I think you have to go and reshare.
Yeah, I think you have to unshare and then reshare.
Okay. Yeah, I have 2 screens, so that probably makes it complicated. Me too. Sure. Okay. So these should be our construction plans now.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So these weren't showing on the, because I only had the replication plans open. Wherever there was a wetland adjacent to our work, we're calling out these sediment control barriers, which is, like I said, much of the project. So you can see it just tying into some retaining walls, but generally following our limit of grading. We're showing that. And that's just the detail that was on the construction sheet. I mean, pretty standard, I think, for protecting the areas.
Do you have a like a laydown area construction wise, and where is it relative to the project, and what sort of, do you have any protections or proposals in regard to like material that gets stockpiled or otherwise?
They'll be following a health and safety plan during construction. I mean, we don't like have our contractor, but I think they'll, Rick, maybe you can chime in if they'll have to be following the stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Typically what we do is if we help the contractor out, and we'll generally produce a plan that we can give to the Conservation Commission to show where the laydown area and stockpile areas and whatnot. So that will be part of the stormwater pollution prevention control. You're right, Kayla. So if the commission's okay with that, that's the way we usually do it. We wait to get a contractor on board so we know where to put in everything and we all agree where it's gonna go, like, whether it's trailers, stockpile areas and whatnot, so.
Yeah.
That will
We
come
just kind of
later.
need them on board because I think they usually have some input on that plan.
Yeah, if the commission's comfortable with having that be a condition, that's the way we usually do it, so.
Do we, on the tree study, you mentioned the invasive trees that are there. Is there any, just for my information, a picture of what I know, what was the first tree that you mentioned that the majority is that's there?
That's the tree of heaven. We didn't prepare a photo log to accompany that. But I could certainly provide the commission with photographs. Or if Kayla wants to Google it really quickly.
I'm Googling it.
I mean, I think I know what it's going to look like, but I just had never heard the name of it.
Yeah, it has the compound pinnate leaves, exactly like that. It's a clonal tree too, so it sends up runners and shoots, and so you'll see them in colonies and clusters. So it's pretty common in urban areas with the soils that are present there.
These
Okay.
are not native trees to Massachusetts.
This tree, I think, came in from somewhere in Asia. And I think it was introduced in like ship ballast or something, and plant segments came over and it became established.
Well, let me tell you this. A number of years ago, when I had to have allergy injections, one of my injections were for the 17 trees that are normal in Massachusetts. That's what they gave them for me. So these are not trees that are normal in Massachusetts.
Well, this one's tree of heaven, so we know where that came from.
But they shouldn't.
I know I like wrote down a question here in regard to what's the hope for the replication area to survive not being overrun by the Phragmites? Obviously, you're putting a wide range of different plants in there to hope that a couple or all of them will hold back the Phragmites. Is there any ideas or plans for kind of monitoring and maintaining, like, because obviously you're going to install a pristine wetland area.
Yeah, exactly. So as part of the notice of intent, we submitted under separate cover a wetland replication plan. That's what Kayla is scrolling through right now. And this was developed in accordance with the DEP wetland replication standards and guidelines, which is a pretty hefty document, and you have to check off a lot of items and boxes to really help document that you're conforming to a lot of their standards for best practices for designs of these. And part of that is a pretty rigorous monitoring plan after you've created these areas. So we are proposing up to 3 years of monitoring. So following the completion of construction, a qualified wetland scientist will go out, document the area, establish photo plots, other sampling locations, and gather some baseline data. And then they'll go back out twice a year for 2 more growing seasons to continue to document these areas. And if they notice that any plants are dead or dying, recommendations will be made for suitable replacements. In addition, if any invasive species are documented to be entering the area, monitor will coordinate with the city to develop a plan and recommendations for their removal. And these reports will be provided to the commission on an annual basis as part of this proposal for your review and consideration.
How successful when you install like a replication area like this, can it trump the invasives, or is it only a matter of time if everything is done for the first 3 years, and then following those 3 years, if the city if it's left back to nature with no help, is it most likely that the invasives would take over, or just, I mean, there's obviously, it could be very rigorous to try and protected, especially because the area, it's obviously surrounded by Phragmites. So
Yes, I certainly understand your point and where you're coming from. I can't make an assurance either way that after 3 years, this will stay completely native or not. With this design and the planting density and the overseeding and the species that we've selected, they're pretty quick to establish. They can grow at really good densities to help really give this native community an edge against the Phragmites. Looking at, and I know that Kayla and I had discussions about this, but just looking at, managing invasives, it just goes down a rabbit hole and there's really no end to it if you start to sort of look at, the Phragmites that's sort of adjacent to this. I guess an option that I've seen on some projects for wetland replication areas that some communities have seen with some success is the installation of a root barrier, which is just a vertical structure along the edge of a replication area adjacent to where you might have Phragmites. It's pretty inexpensive. It's not part of our design right now, but certainly that's something that the city could consider later down the road if they were starting to see a lot of encroachment and they were not able to keep beating it back on an annual basis.
Yeah, I was wondering, like a question for Jay. Jay, do you know, obviously putting these replication areas in, and obviously they're there to encourage some, animals and, besides the plants that they're putting in, I think the encouragement is also to try and get some wildlife down there too. So these would ultimately be, an island among the Phragmites, but they might be a nice viewing area off the path. So I don't know if, independent of this notice of intent, I'm not sort of saying I would have it as a part of our order of conditions, but it would be nice if the city were, willing to try and put an extra effort into this, because it's almost like it's going to be a park,
No, it's a great point, Eamon, and something that's been on my mind for a while too, that, we're putting a path through an area that's, quite a lot of, basically conservation / parkland, if you will, that has been for decades, cut off by highway ramps and overpasses. And I think one of the great things about this project is that looking, into the future, a few years, it's a great opportunity for the city to embrace that area, and whether it's restoration of wetlands, whether it's bringing a little more access into a sort of an urban wild. I think that would be my hope in the future, is to really enable this to be a really recognized asset of the city, whereas today it's unknown and hidden.
Yeah, no, obviously, and this would be great that if we build this replication area, and based on the success of that, then the city can look at it in that regard and decide that, they're not wasting money by, improving, because they can obviously go in and not so much replicate, but they can replace the invasives with similar plantings to this replicated area.
Right.
So
I think bringing the visibility to these areas is kind of a nice first step into getting that point and having folks recognize what this could be and what an asset it is. So
yeah.
And these are DCR owned too, so you could always coordinate with DCR.
Yeah.
I know they have a special interest in paths and landscaping.
Is the path going to be owned by the city or just maintained by the city?
Just maintained.
Okay, so does DCR own the path?
It's a combination of we have a lease with the MBTA, so we will, I guess, we lease that portion of it and own that portion of the path. The remainder is essentially going to be a maintenance agreement where DCR essentially will own the path. You're right, and we will maintain it.
Okay.
And then probably 60% of it is actually on the private property, on Site Center's property.
Okay, so we're just, will we maintain the path all the way to the connection to the path that goes to Encore?
We are working on a maintenance agreement right now with Site Centers, so that's we haven't finalized that yet, because we're still waiting for a couple of just sign-offs from DCR, we want their maintenance agreement in hand before we negotiate with site centers. So we can have one standard set of, maintenance tasks. But the idea would be we would share it with site and might be, the city plows the whole thing, but site, mows the lawn or something like that. There'll be,
Yeah.
we'll try to share it in that regard.
So, I mean, I think a lot of people have been looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's been a really complex project, just given the number of stakeholders, the players, the property owners, the legal exercise we went through with site centers. This is, I didn't imagine it taking 5 years from when we first started really looking at this, but no, it has taken a while, and we're excited to really be at the finish line here.
And I could say my final question, but I'll probably come up with another one. But it would appear that the boardwalk is being designed in pressure treated timber. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Was there any thought, because I currently have a project on my radar at the moment, but they're using HDPE. I know when you decide to use HDPE, it's the cost of materials is 2 to 2.5 times the cost of pressure treated timber. Was any thought given to that in regards to, obviously, for maintenance? I mean, I know that would be a city decision, but I just wonder if it was thought of and somebody decided one way or the other.
I actually think that was a question brought up by DCR in the review, or maybe the peer reviewer. So I can pull up what the structural engineer came back with. But I vaguely remember there being, I think there was consideration for that type of material. I might have to get back to you on it though. Yeah, I think that they had thought about HDPE and there were some references to it, but in the end, due to cost, and then also they said there's going to be a grace water and ice shield applied to all the stringers and everything, something similar to what they use for roofing. And typically this treatment is enough as long as the stringers aren't exposed to a continuous wet and dry cycle. So I think in their experience, this has been enough for this type of application.
Agreements would care and maintenance and replacement of timber on the boardwalk be part of that?
Be part of the agreement?
Actually, Kayla, this is on DCR's side, right? I'm not DCR, sorry, site centers.
Site centers, yeah, there's actually
Yeah,
site.
so I think they would be responsible for long-term maintenance on it.
Okay.
Yeah, the property line is right here, actually. So the boardwalk is all site centers.
I'm good right now.
Anyone else on
Anyone else
the
have anything?
commission?
No, I think most of the questions I had were already covered.
So Rick, without the DEP number, what is usually the next step? Not that this is usual, but.
Well, it's up to the commission if they want to approve the project as is. Like I said, they just won't be able to issue the order of conditions officially till we give them the DEP file number. So, but they can
Well, you
still
have to
vote on
keep-
it as far as I believe. So,
You have to keep after them to get the file number. You have to call them every day. Push them to get it.
Will do.
Otherwise.
yeah,
It
they've
doesn't
been a
help
little
they're not in their
slow.
office. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was told that
They
it's
still
gonna
have
be,
that small office, so you gotta, that's what I found in the past. You've got to keep after them to get the file number, because you can't go ahead with this without the file number.
right, and
Yeah.
Jay, Kurt's been really
And there
good,
is
and I
no-
did
there is
actually
no,
already email him.
Okay,
There is no filing fee, because it's a community in Massachusetts, so there is no filing fee for the city of Everett. And,
Correct, yeah, we submitted the
the
fee
city-
transmittal
the city
form
paid for
on
the
June
legal
26th.
notices? Yeah, I think we did, yes. Which normally the city does not pay for, the applicant does, but since the applicant is the city of Everett. As to why we had
So we'll be all over DEP.
no reason for that. I heard what the reason was. If you want to hear what I was told. I was told. Yes.
That we have to put where we can say, we'll do this with our order of first petition that we have.
I can't hear you.
This is Tom Philbin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Up there. Rita has a couple of questions.
Sorry. The mic thing on that is not working or something. Mr. Norton, could you interject in there and ask if we have, the commission, if we at this point want to approve the notice of intent
Yes.
with our order of conditions, our normal order of conditions?
Yes.
And if anybody else has anything to add to that.
Well,
we
that's
could
what
do
I
that.
was going to do that now. We are ready to issue an order of conditions. If there's anybody else that has anything else to say about that, now is the time to do so. No, they didn't hear anything. Are we finished now and ready to take a vote? No.
Because
Will somebody
Yuri
make a
is,
motion then?
well, hold on, Yuri is here, so you have to ask if anybody in the public wants to make a comment.
Who is there?
Someone from Bike to the Seat.
Oh, yeah, yes, all right, so I have to ask 3 times, is there anybody present who wishes to speak in favor of the project? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the project? And thirdly, is there anybody present who wishes to speak in favor of the project? And if there is, would that person please come forward?
Sure, yeah, can I speak?
Name and address.
Sure, my name is Goiko. I live in Medford, 18 Lawrence Street in Medford. But our organization obviously cares about Everett amongst all the other communities that we border. As the Northern Strand currently goes from Everett Lynn. We are incredibly excited about this opportunity and just overall super thrilled by Kim's and Amanda's presentation. They're doing everything perfectly, at least on paper. So you know, thanks to them for doing that, and for Jay for leading the charge. It will absolutely provide you know, an extended, safe way to bike and walk and skateboard and wheelchair and do everything else in the town, in a like Jay said, in a way, in an area that has largely been unknown or neglected. So I think really that nothing bad can come of this, and with the bridge over to Assembly, if and when that ever happens, that would really be just a game changer for the entire community around us, giving people a safe way to commute, or even just to go out and enjoy, you know, walk around Boston, North Boston, and bike around North Boston. And right now there isn't a real safe way to do it, and without this connection, that might never happen. So it doesn't sound like there's any opposition to the project. Great.
Yeah.
That you know, it goes through and potentially.
I have here 2
within a year.
Organizations.
Thanks.
Somebody's doing.
Thanks, Yuri.
That connection is something. All right, I have 2 letters that were sent for the Conservation Commission in support of the project. What they have from the she has indicated in her letter that she is in favor of this project very much. And the second is from Stephen P. Winslow, the council at large. He's been around for years about this Bike to the Sea, and he is also approving this and is very, very happy that it's happening now at this time and the way in which it's being done. So those will go into the record. So now we have to have somebody make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to issue an order of conditions. Just using our standard conditions, I think is fine. This is not a major construction project. So I'd like to issue an order of conditions for this extension of the Bike to Sea path.
I'll second that. This is Rita. I'll second that.
All right. All right, I have to take the vote, please. Carl, what are you voting?
Carl said yes.
And your daughter?
Daughter says yes.
Eamon?
Eamon says yes.
Daughter?
Daughter says yes.
Ms. Hashem?
The family business over here.
Hashem says yes.
All right, and I am voting yes as well. So it is approved.
Thank you. Oh, my cat also says yes. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody. This is really exciting to move this forward, and I appreciate all of your support. And I think it's really, as Yuri said, the grand scheme of all this is really going to be a game changer someday. So this is one small step on the way there.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to bring something up now. Now there's something else I need to speak with the commission about.
Taylor, say hello to Matt for me.
Say hello to who?
Oh,
Matt.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
okay.
You just came up today, actually.
The doctor let me tell them what I want to do.
Sorry.
All
Matt's
right.
Andrew. I'm going to jump off, I
as you
think,
recall-
unless anyone needs anything.
No, you may leave. You're all set.
All right.
Thank you.
When we get the DEP number, I'll call every day, and then we'll let you know when we get the number.
You gotta just push them. You'll get it.
All right. Sounds good.
I think I gave you
Have
the
a good night.
number, but I believe it is. All right.
Thank you. Good
All
night.
right.
Now, that-
Good night, everyone.
Speak to the members of the
Night.
commission, as you will.
Good night.
As you will recall,
Good night.
Ms. Kelly had to ask us to approve her signing the documents. We had to give her permission to sign the documents because we're not there to do this. We need to take a vote now to give Mr. Philbin permission to sign the documents, and he would be signing this document, this order of conditions for the project. So,
I will make the motion. This is Rita. I will make the motion that Mr. Philbin can't sign the documents on the commission's behalf.
all right.
I will
Second,
second that. Eamon seconds that.
all right, now we take the vote, please.
Carl says yes.
Yes,
Cheryl says yes. Dave says yes.
Eamon says yes.
Rita says yes.
and I say yes too. So that's that. Now let's see what we have to look at here next on the agenda. That takes care of that.
The minutes of June.
We have the minutes from the June meeting of June 18th, 2020. We with the ExxonMobil and the notice of intent there. What do we need to do there, Dave?
I have a suggestion. Mrs. Reader, I have a suggestion that we should probably do. Wait a minute. I'm up with Mr. Norton and the other gentleman. So you'll have to excuse me. My computer didn't work. May I say that? They can't see me.
Because it's what I can see.
Just a moment.
Pull your chair up. Pull the chair up.
Mr. Norton,
All right, I can
just leave it. You can see. Listen, I'm sorry, but on the minutes, on B number I or number 1, the motion was seconded by Carl and seconded again by me. We can just put 2, if we want to do them that way, we can do the motion was seconded by Carl and May Kernan, okay?
That's
Is
fine.
that okay?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And the other thing is, we have to put in these minutes that the minutes of May, we had tabled to June. But we never got the minutes from May in June. So we're gonna have to put that in these minutes, that the main minutes are still tabled.
Yes, and I'll go back and review the video. Do the minute.
And do the minutes, that's fine.
There's a
That's
video,
fine.
it's an audio.
Either, yeah.
Well, either or.
All right.
Either or. Let me see what else. I think that was it for me that I caught. Anybody else catch anything?
No.
Do we have a certificate of compliance that we need to deal with?
I believe we just took care of it with the vote.
See if that's been taken care of.
So,
And this Massachusetts Water Resource.
Oh, this.
They're not doing anything. That's just a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew there was nothing, there's nothing coming up with that.
yeah, just Ina wanted to discuss.
Oh, he did. Can't hear us. No. What is going on with this today? He didn't want to discuss that, I guess.
Heyman? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did we just lose? Yeah.
Marco. Marco.
Did we lose? Did I lose sound? Can you hear me?
Yeah, they dropped off, I think. Tom dropped. And Tom, I think, is like muted because the little microphone's red next to it.
Yeah, he's unmuted.
Hi, everybody.
But they were all on John Norton's service. So, okay.
We have you here. I'm actually going to switch the laptop for whatever reason. This is Tony. Just one moment. So we have, there's an issue with that laptop. So this one is working. It's okay. No worries. It's not working. For some reason it's not working. It's okay. So there was a thing. So you just did all five.
Heyman? Heyman?
Yes.
Would you have something that you wanted to discuss with me?
Your two computers are beside each other and they're causing feedback.
This just came back on.
You need to repeat that, Tom. It says Tom. I mean, you need to repeat that, John.
Did you have something you wanted to say about the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority?
Yeah, something if you wanted to say about the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority.
I need to read it because it's not very clear.
No, I cannot hear you, John. I cannot hear you.
Not very. What is this coming from?
Yeah, well, that's just letting.
All right. The Massachusetts Water Resources Authority
Mhm.
sent us information that they're going to be doing some work next year.
Guys, the two computers that are in John's location, one of them needs to have the mic and the speakers muted. The two computers can't operate from the same location because you're getting a loop or feedback.
All right, one has been removed. One is gone now.
Okay, and John, you need to move closer to that microphone because you're too far away.
Well, I can't get the close to this. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yes.
All right, the Mass Water Resources Authority sent some information to us to tell us that they're going to be doing some work next year in Everett. They are the people, of course, as you know, that supply the water to the city of Everett and also take the sanitary sewage to the treatment plant in Winthrop. So it's just something they sent to us. There's nothing for us to vote on or anything. They're just informing us that there's going to be something going on next year.
But aren't they, do they not have to file a notice of intent because they're bang in the middle of all the wetlands down there?
Well, I know that. I think that
They will do that
Yeah.
next year. They just wanted to inform us
Yeah.
that something was going to be happening next year. That's all.
That's all.
They will have to file that in Kent.
They know what we've had them before in the past, and they know what to do. And they're ready to do whatever it is that they're doing.
Okay, then that's fine. I don't know, Darrell and Carl, are you aware of the area that they're talking about?
Yeah, it's at the end of the path, but between the parking lot and the truck company.
Yeah.
Well, it's more where the new stand is. There's a paved area, you know, well, it's porous pavement, but there's pavement from the path out to the river. And they built a new boat ramp down at the end of it, but that's the area where the MWRA pipes are, and I believe that's where it enters and goes underneath the river.
Oh, I'm looking at the picture now, so it's a little to the side of it. Kind of where that loop is, it's not like right where that loop is, it's closer to the truck side, and then it's down through the bushes. I see it.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're just gonna have to file as anybody else would have to file, I expect, so. You know, letting us know they're gonna file is fine.
Yeah, well, they're just telling us that it'll be next year, not this year, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, is there anything else?
No.
No? All right, then,
John, one thing, it's Carl. One thing we talked about before was when they were doing the project that we approved for, I want to say down towards Chelsea off of 2nd Street.
Yes.
They were talking about having a site visit, and I didn't know if that happened or anything with all these things going on and people changing. Is that going to happen, or are they going to? That's a Tom question.
The project's between Everett and Chelsea, they're near where the company that delivers the growth.
Is that the next one?
No,
Is that after replacing the Market Street culvert? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. A site visit will be done on that. I think somebody will get down there and take a look at it. About it's in Everett and
Carl, you want to go to that?
Well, yeah, I was talking with Rachel before all this stopped, so I didn't know, like, if Tom is getting contacted as somebody and wants somebody else to join.
It's right here.
Tom will do that. That's with everybody, see who else might want to go.
Right
here.
Yeah, one of the things that, Carl, would you like when Davis Company begins that or the city? This is the daylighting of Island End Stream in the box culvert?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly do a site visit.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Rachel was talking about doing one, and so I just kind of go along when she's going to see what's going on. And I work down near there too, so I can just be there in a few minutes.
Great. So, do you want to do it at the beginning when they set up the staging, or when would be a good time for you to want to take a look at it?
Maybe when they start doing it. That's they're set up and they start doing it, you can kind of see the project starting, going from where we're starting from.
Right. Yep, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why we did the vote today to give me permission to sign, because they went to the registry with the electronic signatures. And the registry wouldn't accept it. So that's why we did the vote tonight.
Okay.
And then I'll sign off and then they get permission from the registry, and they can't start until they get that. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question is, do we know where Miss Kathleen O'Brien has disappeared to?
No, we don't know. I mean,
So
she used to call Rachel, but I heard nothing from her.
So she did send a note tonight saying that she is having trouble making it in, she's probably going to end up resigning from the
Conservation Commission.
From the Conservation Commission. So I think, we should discuss replacement.
She has a no thing, we just should accept her resignation.
I just got it, so I just wanted to let the mayor know that.
All right, and we have the two alternatives here.
Yeah.
Perhaps-
Well, I mean, can we put it forward then that Carl and Darrell, become more than alternates?
Well, we can vote
Only-
on either
only-
Carl, we can vote one,
Only one. We need one person to become a permanent member.
and the other will still have to stay the alternative until.
Darrell is pointing towards her father. You can,
saw that.
Darrell, you can make a motion.
Well, we can't make a motion to do anything yet until she actually resigns.
Yeah, the mayor gets notification.
That's fine.
When that happens, then
Okay.
we'll vote.
Yep. No,
Oh, Nick?
no, I think having the alternates is great, but obviously, if their status gets upgraded or changed or otherwise, then if they want that, I think we should look into that, Tom. So.
Absolutely. And also, if that does happen, think about other people who could come on board too, as well.
Yeah.
So we will have one.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Please
Second
call
it.
me tomorrow when you're on the way. Seconded has been seconded. Please
I will
call
do
me
that.
when you're on the way. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, then.
Aye.
Meeting of the Conservation Commission has concluded. Thank you
That was-
very much.
That was a tough one, but we're good. Bye, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Be safe.
John, I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, that's an idea.
If you can do that here, fine.
Oh, you got
Close this off.
TV, I think.
Okay, close.
I think you can do a lot of things with that.